Hi, this is Dr. Robert Smith. I wanted to talk to you about the PROWL exercises. What we're talking about specifically is how do you get your autonomic nervous system, your vagal nervous system, to get better able to adapt to stress. PROWL exercises, real simple. We got this from Dr. Dan Davis's class, and I wanted to share this with you. It'll help increase vagal tone, vagal adaptation, and the ability to resiliency, and also it is known to increase heart rate variability, which is a good indicator of better physiological adaptability. So when we look at this, what we're talking about is taking a small momentary break during the course of the day. Do it in the morning when you first wake up. You want to also consider doing this probably after about an hour to an hour and a half of sitting on the job. Because remember, stress on the job is one of the things that causes problems with increased loss of longevity and difficulty in dealing with stress. Sitting. We want to make ourselves better able to deal with stress during the course of our life, during the course of our workday, everywhere. So one of the things you can do is do these simple exercises. Prowl. You can do it in the morning when you wake up. Remember, heart rate variability can be improved by doing these exercises. You can also do it by gargling in the morning. You can also do it by singing in the shower, running cold water on your head for uh, 10-second time intervals up to 3 minutes will increase heart rate variability, increase your vagal nerve activation. Simple exercises to increase your ability to deal with stress. So when we talk about PROWL, what we're talking about real quickly is a quick way to remember this acronym is puppet, runway model, opera singer, wings, and lazy hammock. It's important to realize what we're trying to do is get to bring ourselves to physiological relaxation better by being able to have our system go into a slightly stressful situation, adapt, and in turn return back to normal. That helps to get rid of the white knuckle syndrome we talk about sometimes with people getting behind the car and they're just stressed. These sort of exercises will help you deal with this sort of thing all throughout the course of your day. Remember, stress, the postcard from the edge is this. If you're not working on this sailboat, a lot of times people that you're talking to or you're looking at on the next car over, their boat looks like this. They're right on the edge. So remember, hypothalamus, pituitary gland, adrenal glands all work together for this hypothalamus, pituitary, adrenal gland interactive loop. It's part of the system. And what we're looking at is, remember, these stresses ultimately have a problem on mitochondria. Because that's what happens when you cause stress. One of the things is it does this to your mom's gift, the mitochondria. Hello, this is Dr. Robert Smith, and I did promise I was going to go over and show you PROWL. So the PROWL exercise is basically what we're doing this for is vagal nerve activation and heart rate variability. This information comes from a very long class that was actually taught by Dr. Dan Davis of thebacresort.com. You can get more information from him on the information about vagal nerve activation, but I want to provide my information real quick on the exercises we did and explain why we should do them on a regular basis. Talking about what happens when you see this dormitory, which was not a football stadium, but was built to house students, but also had the ability to double as a dormitory, which was brought together by this particular individual when he was seeking funding for a federal grant to build the dorm. And we all know that when you go on a prowl, this sometimes is an area where people know about how stress occurs because this is what they say where dreams come to die, at least according to the New York Times. But more importantly, let's look at what the PROWL acronym looks like. We're talking puppet, we're talking runway model. That's my LSU student looking for a leprechaun outfit. Opera, which is the pose we're going to use with our hands like this, and we're going to do the stretching. wings, we'll be thinking of the wing poses that we do, and then a lazy hammock. So what it's going to look like is Dr. Bob Smith, I want to go over real quick something I'm going to do for all of y'all today. I'm going to explain the details of how it works when I do my talk. Everybody stand up. We're going to do what's called PROWL, P-R-O-W-L. What you're doing this for is to increase heart rate variability. You're also doing it to increase vagal tone and stimulation. I'll explain to you the details later. Just right now, they're easy. If you've had shoulder surgery recently or something like that, or back surgery, sometimes you have a surgical joint thing, just be aware you might want to be ginger doing these. So P of PROWL is puppet. So you're doing the arms up like this. Now, when will you do this? You'd want to do this in the morning when you first get up, one shoulder at a time. And then the next thing you'd want to do is you want to do runway model. Rolling the shoulders, just like that. Runway model, walking down the shoulders, strutting. Laughing is good because remember it also activates the vagus nerve, which is going to increase your heart rate variability, which is what we want to do. Because if you do this consistently for the next 2 weeks, I will actually increase your longevity. P-R-O. Now, O is the opera singer. So we're going to be doing our opera pose, and we're doing the opera, and we're singing, and we're twisting. If you think about what I'm having you do, I'm actually having you use a lot of receptors in the joints in your back purposely. It also is having a positive impact on your autonomic nervous system. So we got O done. Now the next thing is wings. Remember the part in the game where you go to see the hockey games and they're doing the chicken thing at the mid-outlet stretch? We're doing something kind of similar to that. We're actually getting our lower back actually moving a little bit. We're actually firing off the articular receptors. And it doesn't hurt, but you should know when you feel loosened up. Last thing we're going to do is lazy hammock, L. So we're going back a little bit like that. Again, we're getting some joint stretching going on. And y'all just done PROWL. When y'all do that, try to do it. If you've been stuck in the same place for about an hour, 2 hours, get up and just run through that. Seems goofy, laugh, watch yourself in the movie. It's okay. See the mirror. You're trying to increase basically this vasal reaction. I'll explain to you the physiology when I do a talk. Have a seat. Thanks. So when we look at this, what we're actually talking about is we realize the autonomic nervous system is composed of the sympathetic nervous system, the parasympathetic nervous system, as well as the enteric nervous system, which is now we've come to realize is called the second brain. So that's the gastrointestinal system nervous system, which has a large propensity of information coming from that area up to our brain. High numbers of data points are going in information feeds, so our body uses this information all the time to adapt to our environment and actually provides control for all these different systems with these nervous systems. Cortisol stress is just an example of what we now know. Increased demand of cortisol level, this depletion begins to run us out and cause problems. The father of stress research, Hans Selye, told us that the whole component of this hypothalamus adrenal thymus gland connection, and now they talk about the other components, the hypothalamus pituitary system containing back into the brain. So stress is basically the consequence of us not being able to adapt due to these stresses, because evolutionary, the system was designed very well to deal with being chased by a saber-toothed tiger to survive. But when you look at it for the continual day-to-day stresses we overactivate it sometimes, and learning how to do that simple exercise, PROWL, will help give you more ability to be resilient. And why do we want to be resilient? Because energy demands are consistently going back and forth, and our system works optimally when it's able to adjust, self-regulate. When we have it out of balance, the energy demands become over the top. Nutrition, a lot of times, is all we've got to compensate for it, because all these are different forms of stressors. And we don't think about them, but they all interrupt our ability for our body to adapt to our environment. Because we start off and we don't realize that when we go from mom looking in this shape here to crawling and then walking, we're doing that by all these little joints that are in our back, and the joints in our shoulders, and the joints in our hips, and the legs, and the arms all play a part in it. When we look at the back, we're talking about 48 receptor fields. The case of the ear, we understand what a receptor field is. People have heard of that. You hear with it. Case of the eyes, we know we use our eyes to see. But a lot of people don't realize that every one of these joints have nerve endings around them, and those are part of that receptor kinetic chain information that we use to adapt to gravity all the time. We're putting demands on it. That's why sitting on the job has now been listed as being as stressful as having a pack of cigarettes a day. Getting up and doing this simple PROWL exercise will help you get around that stress problem of being sitting on the job. Because one of the things we know is you can't just use painkillers to address this, because that very hypothalamic pituitary adrenal system is damaged when we use these painkillers over and over, and it actually causes disruption in our systems. And that's a big thing, because if you disrupt the system, we've all heard of leaky gut. Now we know that our brain also can be induced to have permeability problems, leaky brain. Who thought? Not good. And what we're doing by being better able to adapt is we're increasing our ability to keep the telomeres longer. And when you do that, you literally increase your longevity. I want to thank Dr. Dan Davis, Roanoke, Virginia, for this presentation snippets that I'm taking. His can be reached at backresort.com, and he has more information on vagal nerve reset if you're interested in learning it. Hello, Dr. Bob Smith here. It's amazing when you think about it how much information has changed and developed over the last year, 5 years, 15 years, 50 years, that point to the understanding of how nutrition as a science, and specifically the interplay between us and our bacteria in our intestines and all of our genes and those bacterial genes, either upregulate and produce things that make us exceedingly healthy or play a part in making us not so healthy. Part of it's what we eat, part of it's what the bacteria produce as byproducts. All of those come into play. And the only education we can actually use now to help ourselves literally is the education that gives us a background that lets us understand how this works and do it in a way that we can use it in our own daily lives. That's what I try to give people an opportunity to understand, so they have a foundation to understand when they're making choices about food, about supplements, about anything when it comes relating to their health and activities, so they know up front that this is going to be a good or great idea for me for the long term to keep me in better shape and feeling better. These are the sort of problems we face in addressing and trying to get answers on how to be healthy. And I'm Dr. Bob Smith. I would like to help you in your journey to find better health and nutrition along the way. Give us a call.